I don't know if it's just my algorithm, but lately I've been seeing a lot of videos online about Babaa sweaters, how to knit your own Babaa sweater, what even is a Babaa sweater. So today, as a proud owner of a Babaa sweater myself, I thought I would break down what the hell is a Babaa sweater, why might you want to knit something in a style of a Babaa sweater, and why is everyone so obsessed with this brand? And then also figure out how we can knit a version of this ourselves. I'm going to be sharing some patterns and some tips with yarn weights and things like that to help you achieve the Babaa look. So let's get into it. So Babaa is a family-run Spanish knitwear brand that started about 12 years ago. They focus on ethical, sustainable production. Almost everything is done in-house. They create the sweaters in their factory in Barcelona. They have their own flock of sheep, they have their own shepherds, and they dye the yarns in Spain as well. So everything is very local to Spain, which is really, really good. They clearly care about the animals that they're getting the yarn from. They care about every step of the process, and that is very clear to me. There is definitely a reason why they are hyped so much. I feel, in my opinion, I definitely feel like these sweaters are worth it. Even though I'm going to be talking to you about ways that you can dupe it yourself, if you do have the money to spend and you can't be bothered to knit your own, I would definitely say go check them out. If you compare, there's like luxury sweaters like the Row, which are charging ridiculously over $1,000 for a sweater that is a luxury sweater. When you consider it in that context, the amount that they charge for Babaa sweaters seems a bit more affordable, but they are still quite expensive. So I bought this sweater. This is the sweater number 17 in Violetta. I bought this in April 2023. And I was just looking back at the receipt from when I bought the sweater, and it was 265 euros at the time. I just looked up the same sweater on the Babaa website today, and it is currently retailing for 335 euros. So these things have gone up a lot. We're in a cost of living crisis. There are a lot of reasons why you might decide that now is not the time to be spending that much money on a sweater. And so I think it is perfectly reasonable to consider knitting your own dupe. There are a few other things that might put you off a Babaa sweater. The yarn is very, very rustic, which, as you probably know, kind of translates to itchy. I would definitely say that my sweater is a bit itchy. I can handle itchiness, but if you're the kind of person that can't handle it, I would definitely say that these sweaters will be too itchy for you and you should probably stay away. This yarn is so rustic that when I first got it, I would find little bits of straw coming out of the sweater. You can feel how close the sweater is to the sheep process. Like, it almost smelled a bit sheepy when I first got it. You really feel that rusticness. But actually, because it is so rustic, it means that it is very, very hard wearing and would last you for probably forever. This sweater I've now had for 3 years and I have barely seen a pill in it at all, maybe just the occasional one, but honestly it is probably one of the most hard wearing sweaters that I have. It is a sweater I reach for when I just need to be really, really warm and I just need protection from the cold. The other reason you might not want to buy one of these is because there is no size range. These sweaters are one size fits all, which isn't great for size inclusivity. The point of these sweaters is that they're very oversized. So for most ranges from sort of small to mid-range sizes, it probably would give you that oversized look. But unfortunately, if you're plus size, you're not going to get that oversized look from these sweaters because there is no option to go up a size. So that is another reason why you might want to knit your own version of these sweaters. So now let's deep dive into the construction of this sweater that I'm currently wearing and figure out why it is so good. So I'm here on the floor with my Babaa sweater. The first thing you'll notice, and I have my hanger as a pointer, the first thing you'll notice is that this is very, very boxy. When we talk about boxy sweaters, this is probably the boxiest sweater I've ever seen. And when I laid it out, I was really surprised that the shoulders, I hadn't noticed that along the shoulders, it is literally just straight across and straight down. And usually with knitting patterns, you will have a little bit of shoulder shaping and a bit of a slope, so it'll come down more like that. But I think things that you technically think are a good fit in certain jumpers actually kind of just take away from that oversized boxy fit. So I think the fact that it's square is something very important to bear in mind, and actually is probably what contributes to the shape of this sweater. This on me is very, very wide. I was measuring the positive ease that I have on this sweater, and I think this sweater is giving me about 30 centimeters of positive ease. Now that is a lot bigger than most sweaters will suggest, even if they're an oversized sweater. Usually you're going up to like probably about 20 centimeters of positive ease, but on me this is actually about 30, so we're getting a lot of positive ease here. Now obviously this is completely dependent on your size, and since they're only one size, that positive ease is going to be different on everyone, but in general I think anything that has a lot of positive ease seems to be how you're going to get that effect. Another thing I wanted to point out was the sleeve shapes. The sleeves start quite large and then they go quite relatively narrow. I mean, they're not super narrow, but they start off very large and then they rapidly decrease. So yeah, you can see a bit better now. There is quite a lot of decreasing going on here. And I think the armhole being very big there actually also contributes to that big oversized feel. I would say it's almost halfway down the sweater, the sleeve opening length, and I think that contributes to the oversizedness of everything. And then one final thing I wanted to point out was the denseness of the fabric. This sweater is very, very dense. It's kind of hard to show on camera, but it's almost like it stands up on its own. This sweater feels like the opposite of drapey. I feel like when we're usually looking at sweaters and talking about fabric and what we want to achieve, we often as knitters talk about we want drapiness. But I actually think to achieve this Babaa sweater look, you want quite a dense gauge. You want it to not be drapey. You want it to be quite solid and thick and almost not move with your body, which again is kind of counter to what we consider to be a good sweater. Usually we're like, oh, we want it to move with our body, we want it to be drapey, but in this case, with this style of sweater, you actually don't want to have that. You want to have some denseness to the sweater. So maybe even choosing a yarn that is slightly, obviously you still want to achieve the correct gauge for your pattern, but maybe choosing a yarn that is a tiny bit thicker than maybe you would think, I think could be a good way to achieve this. And then obviously sticking to 100% wool, avoiding superwash and anything that is kind of a bit more rustic. So I would imagine Icelandic wool or anything that is described as rustic. I feel like you're probably going down the right track. And now I'm realizing that I really need to give this sweater a wash. So now we've understood what exactly makes Babaa a Babaa, let's look at some knitting patterns that will give you that look and are kind of replicas or very, very similar vibes to some of the sweaters on the Babaa website. So first of all, let's look at the number 17, which again is the one that I'm wearing. This is, as I mentioned, a drop shoulder, and it has a roll neck and it has these little increases here around the neck. The closest dupe to this that I personally can find, and by the way, let me know if you know of any other dupes for these, I would love to hear it. The closest dupe that I can find for this sweater is the Winter's Pullover by Azetta. It is a very, very chunky roll neck, drop shoulder. It is very, very close in my opinion. It looks very similar. It also has that large positive ease, which is very kind of quintessential to the Babaa sweater look. I'm going to be mentioning Azetta quite a lot. Basically, if you want to knit something that looks like Babaa, just go knit an Azetta pattern and you'll probably be getting quite close. Another one which is also quite similar, it doesn't have the roll neck, but you could quite easily modify and add that, is the Nest sweater by Marika Knit. And this one, it looks very similar around the neck with the increases to shape around the neck. That to me looks very similar to my sweater, and I really like this design. It just looks great, and I've heard great things about Marika Knit, so definitely go check that one out. Babaa also, aside from the drop shoulder, they also do quite a lot of saddle shoulder designs. I personally have knit the Lakes Pullover by Azetta, which I love and does feel very Babaa-esque. If you want an exact dupe of sweater number 67 by Babaa, which is a similar roll neck to the number 17, but it has saddle shoulders, then sweater number 30 by My Favorite Things Knitwear is probably the closest that I could find to a dupe of that, and it is stunning. It is super oversized and has that saddle shoulder construction, and I just absolutely love this sweater as well. They also have a V-neck version of the saddle shoulder sweater, which again, Rosetta has a pattern for that. The Lakes pullover V-neck is very similar to the sweater number 29. Hi guys, I'm just editing this video. Well, actually I'm in the car, but I have found a dupe for the diamond argyle intarsia version of the jumper number 17. I just wanted to insert it into this video. It's called the Coleman Diamond Sweater by Naiad Knits, and it looks exactly like the Babaa diamond sweater, so just wanted to add that in. That is my Babaa sweater deep dive. I hope you enjoyed and maybe are considering buying a Babaa sweater or knitting yourself a dupe. Let me know in the comments if there are any other patterns that you consider to be a really good Babaa sweater dupe. I would love to hear it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.